All right, let's get right into it. So back in 2014, this new kind of AI called a Generative Adversarial Network, or GAN, just exploded onto the scene. It was a totally revolutionary idea, but it had a huge problem. It was completely wild, super unstable, and almost impossible to control. But then, in 2015, a paper came along that changed everything. It basically wrote the rulebook for taming the GAN, and in doing so, it laid the groundwork for the entire generative AI revolution that we're living in today. And this slide right here, this gives you a perfect picture of what unstable really looked like. On the left, you've got real handwritten numbers. Now, look at the middle. That's what a standard GAN from that time would spit out. It's just noisy, garbled nonsense. The idea was brilliant, but the results? Pretty much useless. And on the right, that's what happens when you apply the new rules. All of a sudden, it's clear, it's stable, and it's actually convincing. So that's the big question, right? How did we get from that chaotic mess in the middle to the sharp, clean images on the right? Well, the answer wasn't some brand new super complex algorithm. It was actually a surprisingly simple and elegant set of architectural rules that finally brought some order to the chaos, turning GANs from a weird curiosity into an incredibly powerful tool. And here is that answer. The paper was called Unsupervised Representation Learning with Deep Convolutional Generative Adversarial Networks. Yeah, it's a mouthful. And it introduced what they called DCGANs. You should think of it less like a totally new invention and more like the perfect recipe, a handful of crucial guidelines that finally tamed the beast. This right here, this is the secret sauce. The paper laid out 5 core rules. First, instead of using pooling layers that just bluntly shrink the image, they used strided convolutions, which let the network actually learn how to resize things. Smart. Second, they used batch normalization to keep the signals flowing nice and steady during training, which stopped the whole thing from collapsing. Third, they just got rid of the clunky, fully connected layers. And finally, they figured out the best activation functions to use. ReLU for the part that generates images, and LeLU for the part that judges them. See? Simple rules, but the results were absolutely revolutionary. Okay, so take a look at this. This is the blueprint for the generator, the part that makes the images. It all starts in the far left with nothing more than 100 random numbers, literally just a vector of noise. Then, step by step, it uses these clever convolutions to intelligently build up from that noise, refining it and adding detail until, bam, on the right, you have a 64 by 64 pixel image. And notice what's not there. No pooling, no fully connected layers, just that clean, stable architecture doing its thing. So you've got this recipe for stability. Great, but what can you actually do with it? Well, it turns out you can teach an AI to be an artist and generate images that, for the time, were just shockingly realistic. Now, here's the really cool part. The researchers needed to know, was the AI just memorizing and copying photos of bedrooms, or did it actually understand the idea of a bedroom? So they tested this by taking a walk through the model's imagination, what they call the latent space. By making tiny, smooth changes to that initial random noise, they could watch the AI's concept of a bedroom shift and change. And what you see here is the result. The images don't just jump around, they morph into each other. A TV can literally turn into a window. The bed frame changes shape. This was the proof. The model wasn't just copying, it had learned a true concept of bedroom-ness. And this wasn't just about bedrooms. To really push it to its limits, they trained it on the massive, super diverse ImageNet dataset. And as you can see, it worked. It could generate all sorts of plausible images across tons of different categories. You can kind of make out some birds, what looks like mushrooms, cars, buildings. It proved that these architectural rules were solid and could be used to learn about all sorts of things in the real world. But honestly, the amazing pictures weren't even the most groundbreaking part. The real shocker was what the network was learning under the hood. It wasn't just a fancy photocopier. It was actually learning abstract concepts. To prove it, the researchers tried this wild experiment. Think of it like a word problem for an AI. They took the random noise vector that created an image of a smiling woman, then they mathematically subtracted the vector for woman and added the vector for man. So, the big question is, what do you get when you ask the AI to draw that? You get a smiling man. I mean, how cool is that? The AI did the arithmetic correctly on the concepts themselves. It had figured out the essence of a smile as a mathematical thing that it could then just apply to the concept of a man. This was incredible evidence that the network wasn't just learning pixels, it was learning the actual meaning behind them. And that ability to do math with ideas just opened up a whole new world. It meant that AI was building this rich map of how things are related, learning to tell the difference between, say, a window and the room that the window is in. And critically, the features it learned were so good they could be used for other AI tasks, like classifying images. It had learned a genuinely useful model of the world, all on its own. So why do we still care so much about a paper from 2015? In AI years, that's like ancient history, right? Well, because the stability and the capabilities that it unlocked are the direct ancestors of the AI tools that we are all using every single day. And hey, the proof is in the pudding. Look at this data. The researchers took the judge part of the GAN, the discriminator, and used its brain as a feature extractor for a standard image classification task. And what happened? It outperformed the other unsupervised methods of the time. This was a huge validation that the things it was learning were actually meaningful. And that gets us right back to the paper's full name. This is unsupervised representation learning. It's kind of the holy grail of AI research. Can you make a machine learn useful things about the world just by showing it a ton of unlabeled data, like pictures from the internet, without any human help? DCGAN provided a powerful, stable new way to say, yes, we can. So you can literally draw a straight line through history. 2014, GANs are this brilliant but broken idea. 2015, DCGAN comes along and writes the instruction manual that fixes them. And now, in the 2020s, those core principles, using convolutions, using batch norm, that's the fundamental DNA inside of the massive, powerful models like Midjourney and DALL-E that are changing everything. When you really think about it, this paper taught a machine how to draw, not by just memorizing things, but by understanding them. It transformed AI's ability to dream from noisy static into high-definition reality. So if this paper taught machines to draw, it leaves us with a pretty big question. What are we going to teach them next? This is for entertainment purposes only.